Blessed to be with you. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-K. Let's continue on taking more of your phone calls concerning the governor appearing on Fox News. Robert in Boise, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Hey, the thing I don't understand is this is an elective surgery. If this gentleman had, and I use that term loosely, if this gentleman just had insurance, it would be denied because it's elective surgery. So why do we as citizens have to pay for an elective surgery? It doesn't make any sense at all to me.
I agree with you on that, plus the convicted sex offender.
Right. And, I agree with what Tom Munns had to say wholeheartedly, and also the last caller that talked about having a flood of people who, if they want it, they're going to commit some offense and go to prison just so they can have the sex change. And that's ridiculous.
Well, unless we stop it, and I give it to the governor for standing firm on this one.
Yeah, it's going to cost us a lot of money as a state, but I think it'll save us money in the long run. Not that I think that it's
well, no,
go
there's a couple in the pipeline in Idaho. This is just the first one, so you're right.
Yeah, it's going to cost us literally millions of dollars. And I know legal expenses, but we do have a legal team here in Idaho that we're paying money to anyway, so this will just give them something to do.
Well,
anyway,
Robert,
that's all I've got.
All right, Robert. Well, thank you for the call.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hank in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. Roberts would try to not hear the case, but the problem is that, and I think his hand's been forced by the Fifth Circuit ruling the other way. Supreme Court cannot avoid a decision on this. He and his fellow seatmate who just got on the court would have not given the writ of certiorari to hear this. But since Roberts is very concerned about press clippings and taking the heat, because if the court rules against, let's say, allowing the sex change operation, the court will come under considerable heat by the mainstream media, which Roberts definitely fears. And I think that's what motivates a lot of his decision making on the court. It's unfortunate, but that's the way Roberts is. And I think that the Fifth Circuit changes the whole equation of this whole mess.
Well, it really comes down to this. And Hank, we deal with this locally, but there was a lot of equity spent on Kavanaugh, a lot of equity spent on Roberts. Roberts has already bait and switched us many times. Kavanaugh, the same thing. You think to yourself, what's the point in electing or putting Republicans on the Supreme Court if they're going to be closet liberals?
Well, it has to do with why people's motivations and what's important to them. I think that having good press had a lot to do with Sandra Day O'Connor's shift from being a conservative, which she was when she was on the courts in Arizona, to gradually becoming a liberal member, because she could get good press clippings in the New York Times, and I think it played a lot to a certain degree in Kennedy's case. And if your orientation is towards prestige, and you want to be, and you don't want to be socially ostracized, because believe you me, if a person votes conservative on the Supreme Court, they'll be ostracized in Washington society. That's just you're not going to be invited to the parties. You're going to be socially ostracized. That's the way it is back there, and that counts for a lot for some of these people. And,
I don't really get it. You're set for life. You're making all these things. What do you care what's written about you in the paper? You should be above that.
Well, some people are not. You would think so, but some people are not. Some people, and it might matter to a woman a lot whether or not they're in society, in social society, whether or not they're going to be ostracized for a decision they make on the Supreme Court.
All right, let's switch gears, Hank. We had the big forum last night with about 6 people watching it on social media. as the Treasure Valley gets bigger, I think the influence of the mayor of Boise, the city of Boise, lessens. But your thoughts initially on the 5 candidates running against, or the 4 candidates running against Dave Beater?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to see it, but I'll tell you right now that they need to have somebody who's a recognized conservative. The problem is with a divided field like that, Beater's almost certain to win. He's got a solid block in the Boise North End, and then you also got to remember too that one of the factors in increasing Democrat dominance in Ada County is the Andrus Center in Boise State. That's the Democrat think tank. That's where you've got people like Oppenheimer on it. You've got Sherry Buckner on it. You've got you also got other leading Democrats, and of course it's all on the Boise State campus. You've got this Linda Clark, who's a member of it, who I think it's one of Butch Otter's most disgusting appointments, putting her on the State Board of Education. She should be out of that. She's a Democrat Party activist. I really think that the key in the long run for us, if we're going to get Ada County back and Boise back, is we have to do something about Boise State. I say this over and over again, but I don't see the will on our side to do something about Boise State.
Well, that's a tough one considering there are a few people you don't mess with in Idaho, Boise State being one of them. In the old days, it was Governor Otter. And I'm trying to think of the third. I tangled with all 3 of them. But you take a look at the media arm of Boise State. You got Dr. Trump. She's wonderful. She's the best. She's working it. You have everybody worried about this hurricane. Now, look, everybody likes sports and stuff, but these people are so desperate. The media is so desperate for ratings and relevancy that they push this hurricane story that in reality, Hank, has no impact on you and me here. It has no impact on the taxpayers. The transgender guy has more impact on us than the hurricane in Florida.
Well, it's the story of the mainstream media setting the agenda. They were to say the power of total dominance in by the Democrats of the media means that they can set the political agenda. What stories are going to be covered and what stories are not going to be covered. Either
total dominance or total ignorance, and they just go to the LCD, the lowest common denominator, and they create this story where the stupid hurricane is on everybody's mind, and whether or not you're going to have a football game that is a luxury, not a necessity. And no one else will say that, Hank, because as you know, Boise State has the media in their pockets. They don't have us. We did business with them. They decided not to do business with us, and that allows us to be objective. No one else is, because they want their press seats at the football game.
Yeah, but you got members of the Andrus Center, such as our ex-president Custra, sitting on the editorial board of the Statesman. The Statesman may not be read by many people at circulation. It may be lost in circulation, but it still sets what the AP of the Associated Press carries in the Idaho Press. In other words, what the Statesman will carry will be carried by the wire services, and that Statesman still has that power in that sense of the word, even though they're not.
Right, but back to the point, when you're saying doing something about it, that's a tall order. Hank, I appreciate your phone call, sir.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Liberal Steve joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller in the morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Idaho. Good morning, Mr. Miller. You know, I'm with the governor on this. At first, I thought I don't care either way. But, you know, this morning it was a biblical thing with me. It's like that guy that got knocked off his horse that was persecuting the Christians, and then all of a sudden he's going around spouting the word of God. Something happened to me this morning when I opened up, and then I was listening to the comedian there, the Lib. And I decided, you know what? I don't want to be a part of these people anymore. Something's happened to me, Miller. I'm going conservative.
Now, look, you play the bait and switch all the time. We're not falling for your devious little liberal lies. Before long, you'll be calling yourself little boy or something like that. You'll identify yourself as a little boy, and you're not a little boy. You're a senior citizen. So don't try the little boy with us. The bottom line is you're a lib. Don't you played that game with me for too many years.
You really make me sad when you talk like that, Miller. I mean, can I not be converted to the right side? I mean, can I not be a Trumper?
No.
Why?
The tent is closed for you.
I can't even get my nose under it?
No.
Miller, well, I guess I'm just going to have to stick up for conservative values, and apparently you don't have any.
Well, before long, you're going to say you're going to switch your name to Mateo or some other name. You're going to call in under a crazy name.
I'll just go CS, Conservative Steve.
I don't think so.
How about RWN, Right Wing Nut?
Right Wing Nut.
Miller. Like, you know, I wanted to go conservative, but now you put me back on the horse. I'm back on the horse. I'm going to be out prosecuting, and you know what they've spent 100 times. This is a fact. They spent 100 times what it would cost to give that poor guy surgery on fighting this hemp deal where they pulled the truck over and confiscated and sold the truck and put the guy in jail. They have spent 100 times on that of taxpayer money and what it would cost. And what makes national news? Some poor little guy in a cell. The
poor little guy is a convicted sex offender.
Well, big deal.
It wasn't a big deal to that little boy.
Well, I'll bet it wasn't, but he's convicted. He's in jail.
So why should we be paying for his health care?
Because he's in jail. He can't pay for it himself.
Well, who's to say that I don't go to jail because I need lipo?
Well, you do need lipo, but
you know I could get the bariatric thing because I'm a thin man and a fat body, and I'm depressed, so I eat chicken all the time.
I've got nothing else to say. I can't win with you, Miller, either way. But no, you're right. There's no way Liberal Steve can be a conservative. So, Linda, don't be jumping up and down in glee down there in St. George, Utah. But yes, he should get it. I mean, it's just a drop in the bucket. Come on, we're not talking any money at all. We're talking a value thing here, and people say, "No, it's my tax dollars. It's my tax dollars." The state spends just to fight the Medicaid thing is spending more than it would even cost to anesthesia.
So, are you in favor of the state of Idaho paying for a person born a man to be turned into a woman?
Absolutely.
You'll throw in some money? Why don't you and the libs get a fundraiser together and pay for it yourselves?
No, that's an idea. That's an idea. If someone stepped up to the plate and volunteered to pay or just went ahead and cut an open check, their name would be, they'd be on Fox News overnight.
Well,
so why did you step up, Miller, with all that money you got to be able to live in the big city of Star and own a big house in Star and drive a big Subaru back and forth to work and be a big talk show host? Step up with that 6 figures you make every year and cut them a check.
Liberal Steve, thank you for the call. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. There we have it, our friend Max. All right, there we have it. Thank you. Max from Garden City, the voice and writer of that song on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, thank you for playing that. I'm not much of a singer, but the message and the intent is there. Steve, old buddy, the guy who's run from me more often than anything else, I hope you do better. And you know what? You really are a wing nut. by your own profession. You know, what I really wanted to cover today was this elective surgery issue for the inmate. When I was in the Marine Corps, every once in a while, a Marine would go to our naval medical officer and ask for a certain small elective surgery. And I only know of one case in my 6 years where I saw it granted. There was a private whose ears were literally so big that they interfered with his helmet. The Navy tucked his ears back for him. But now we're offering an inmate, a criminal, somebody still behind bars, still paying for his or her, paying their debt to society. And we're going to offer a service that our Navy, our airmen, our sailors, our soldiers, that they can't get. Is that right?
Well, the governor, your pal, the governor is fighting for you. What do you think of that?
I'm really happy he's fighting for me. I'm glad he's looking at us on the right side. I wish you'd also sort of think about food tax, Mr. Little. I really do. We need to not. How much food could we buy for the poor? How much food tax? How much could we lower or eliminate the food tax by not giving a sex change to some weirdo in a prison cell? It's wrong.
I would agree.
I would like to see Governor Little address his priorities, set his priorities, and take on. His number one priority has to be the promise he made to you and to me when we voted for him, and I did. Now I feel betrayed. If he does not do something with it in this next session, we really need to look at a recall petition. We need to look at some way to show all of the politicians by making an example of Governor Little. An example that says, you lie and your career is gone. I don't know if the people have the guts to do it. We are largely a sheeple, not people. We're apathetic.
Did you say
we run our mouths on the radio. Last night I went to the...
wait a minute, you're saying we're sheeple mountain people, not just mountain people, but sheeple?
I think, we're sheeple.
Yeah. I've never heard of sheeple mountain people.
At the conservation voter speech.
Yeah.
Those four mayoral, I was there. I recorded it, watched it, took notes. And it was uncanny. The one, I don't know why she was even there, totally oblivious to the world. Courtney, I got her name written down. Courtney Nielsen. But Mayor Beater put on a pretty good show. And so did that chairwoman McLean. Those two were in front. But you know what? They were all pushing public transport, light rail.
Look, here's the deal. Do you trust McLean to be less of a lib than Beater? That's really what it comes down to. And by the way, if McLean wants to be best friends, we'll have her on. I mean, the real candidate, the guy that wants to make Boise the worst city ever, they didn't allow him in because he was too conservative. That's what I heard.
Well, you know what? When I listened to them last night, I was under the distinct impression. Beater made a very good showing. The man is quick on his feet.
He's got a raspy voice. But
last night he was on top of it. He was on his game.
Well, you can't underestimate that guy, man. He has got the political power. He really does.
McLean, you know what? The impression I get from McLean is this is a woman who gets her own. She gets her way. She's sharp.
Look, I'm ready for Mayor McLean to be my new best friend because, we've been getting the Heisman from Beater, so we'll send that out to her. We're looking for new best friends.
Well, she's the only one that seems to stand a chance among the four that were there.
She could get get my endorsement, but I don't know if that would do anything. Do you?
No, I don't know, Kevin. You may have a little more influence than you think. You never know. You got to keep on going. You know what you got to do? To strengthen your show, you got to take and have lunch with Dr. Max. Even pay for it.
Well, you could say Beater. I'm sure people have said that before.
Yeah, somebody could say, we got to beat Beater or better than Beater.
Better than Beater. I like that, Dr. Max. Anyway, young man, I've got to run, but I'm up against a hard
break. Go get him, buddy. Thank you for the time on the air, and thanks for playing my song.
Yeah, we're gonna play half of it. We're gonna play that again. We have a lot of talent on this show. We have songwriters and singers. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Traffic and weather together. Good morning, Dave. And more of your calls next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. Rolling on the right side, Fox News Radio, only on KIDO Talk Radio here in the Treasure Valley. Eben Brown joining us, talk about Tropical Storm Dorian, Hurricane Dorian. Believe it or not, people in Boise, Idaho want to know all about this issue. Eben, good morning.
Good morning. It is a hurricane, no longer a tropical storm. So, and it'll become a pretty powerful hurricane over the next couple of days as it makes its way through the southwestern Atlantic Ocean. And when it approaches the Florida coast at the end of the weekend, it's going to be what we call a major hurricane, so Category 3, 4, or 5, probably Category 3. But that is a pretty powerful storm, and it will cause some severe damage and interrupt the lives of many, many people. And even after that, it will still wreak plenty of havoc around the state. So we can expect to have an interesting week next week dealing with this here.
Well, Eben, will it hit Sunday or Monday? Do we know?
We're looking at late Sunday, early Monday, I think, at this point. But you have to remember, what they say hit usually means when the eye of the storm arrives. You get the storm before the eye of the storm arrives. So it's something that you have to be prepared for. You have to have all of your supplies and have your plans affected in advance, whether you're staying in your home and waiting, whether you're evacuating, and make a commitment to that, because at some point there's a point of no return. You don't want to be out on the streets.
Eben Brown joining us, Fox News Radio from Florida, in Florida, about this hurricane. You guys deal with this all the time. What's the mindset of people when you have a storm of this category coming to the coast of Florida? How do the people there handle it, sir?
Well, they're handling it better and better each time we do it, I think, ever since the storms of 04 and 05, where the state was responded well but was perhaps not so well prepared beforehand. We have pushed this narrative of preparedness ever since. And so we now see, as of, like last night, people stocking up on their things, the stores running out of supplies and having to be restocked this morning. With the storm still being 5 days out. That's a good thing. We want people to get this done in advance so that not everyone is scrounging and stressed out the night before expected landfall trying to find that bottle of water that they need.
Eben, is the Florida State game a story there? It's a story here.
Well, Florida State and Florida and University of Miami and University of Central Florida and University of South Florida, University of North Florida. We have lots of universities that have college football, and always the game is a story. But we want people to be safe and to make sure that they are prepared. And if they've got time, they've done everything that they need. The storm isn't coming just yet, and there's time to go watch a football game and to watch the Seminoles beat your team, then go do it.
Right. And I don't know if we have any more time for this, but I was just going to say, for people flying to Florida, any thoughts on that will be there for the game?
I'd rethink it. I mean, if you're coming in for the one day, you might have a chance, but you have to remember, the closer we get to the storms, the more risk it is for the airlines, and they will begin to shut their operations down in advance of the storm. So that means not just closing the airport, but getting the flying stock, the planes out of the way as well. So you do run a risk of being stranded here, and hotel space will be at a premium. So just think about it. I'm not going to tell people not to come yet, but just think about it.
Eben, thank you.
You got it.
All right, Eben Brown, and I don't know what the beeping was. I don't know if that was, somebody from Boise State or Florida State trying to censor the, at one time, award-winning broadcast here. Let's go to Tess in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. So, Tess, what do you make of all the football talk here?
All the football talk. Well, I'm a Packer person. So I can hardly wait for everything to really get rolling. And I'm a BSU graduate, so I like BSU. But the reason I called in is
but before we get to that, though, I do want to go back to this where the media here, and here's the cool thing that Eben Brown just said. Did you hear the concern in his voice about the dangers of a hurricane? And our local coverage here isn't warning people not to go. All we care about is whether or not you can go to the game. Now, those people in Florida, they know the hurricanes like, well, I don't know, we know dry air here, right? So we're talking about a possible dangerous situation. The key will be whether or not the governor of Florida and others decide to put safety ahead of recreation.
Well, I lived in an earthquake state for a long time. That would be Alaska. And so we never got all the warnings because it just happened, but you were always certainly prepared. And, the media, isn't it all about derailing and detouring?
Well, don't you see that, though? When we're, everybody's focused on, this game, when you have maybe 2,000 people going, as opposed to, we're talking about public safety here. I could hear it in his voice. People are going to lose their homes. So I don't really know whether or not, and again, people want ratings. Ratings equal money. So you attach yourself to something that you think is going to get you ratings, Boise State. So you program everything. I mean, the top story is the hurricane. Now, for the 1 million people here in the Treasure Valley, they're not impacted by that, are they? Are you impacted by it? No, I'm not.
Adrenaline to go up.
I'm not going to lose my home from a hurricane. This is how they program the media coverage, as we just said. Now, people are going to say, well, you're anti-Boise State. No, not at all. I don't want anybody going into danger. Do you?
I guess you have to, I guess you kind of have to decide how fast the ride's going to be if you're headed that direction.
Well, like I said, I just think the focus should be on something else. Now, you wanted to talk about veterans and suicide?
Yeah. I've had a lot of different thoughts here, but I will tell you ahead of time, the one thing that I always know is that when I'm coming across the state line coming out of Utah, even if it's dark, I can still find 580. I can still find you as long as I keep spinning the dial all the way down to the bottom. So I know I can have someone at least in that car who is riding with me, even though they're not physically there. So I have to tell you ahead of time, I appreciate that. And a lot of the issues you talked about today, I have thoughts on all of them, but at the front of those was your comedian that you had on this morning. Because recently, I had a family member who's their friend just committed suicide. They were a vet. They were a woman. And I also had a friend who committed suicide that was a vet after he came back from Vietnam back in the 70s. And I want people to know, I'm so happy that people are talking about this because veterans, they're not like a woman who's in an abusive situation. They're not like someone who's lost a child who's thinking about dying. Each one of these is a little bit different. But I want to give people courage and give them heart and tell them that if you have someone, especially who's military law enforcement, who you can see their life is out of turn, it's out of course, something's wrong, it's okay to get a friend and go talk to them and say to them, we can see things are happening, something's wrong. We love you. And, we want to help you get past this. And you help them get past that by helping them remove weapons from their homes, because that's very important. And don't be afraid to do that. And sometimes, I'll just tell you real quickly, I had a close friend. We approached a friend, and during that conversation, she said, we love you. We want to help you get past this. And I thought about shooting myself a couple of years ago. Well, I was clueless to that. And so we said, we want to help you because, we know you have weapons in here, and we're going to hold those for you, and let's go get them. You don't say, can we? You just say, let's go get them. And then you take them out of the house. And so then we had a conversation at lunch, and I said, I never knew you thought about killing yourself. Well, guess what? Because people are really good at hiding that. So if you miss it, you miss it. But if you can see it, get a friend, go talk to him, and don't be afraid to say, we're going to help you, and we're here to go ahead and get your guns out of the house. They'll let you. They'll let you, because most of them, even though they're running really hard towards death, sometimes they want people to stick their foot out and trip them.
Tess, thank you for the call.
Mm-hmm.
And again, great information there on our fight to save lives. By the way, the Idaho Suicide Prevention Hotline, 208-398-4357, 208-398-4357. By the way, this is from Liberal Steve. He's mad because Max did a song about him. Max, not enough talent to create his own beat, had to steal one. Typical Republican's mouth holds more than his belly can. Another brain-dead MD. Liberal Steve. All right. There we have equal time. Coming up next, Governor Little on Fox News, laying down the smack on the transgender who was born a male but wants to be a woman and wants you to pay for it. Let's hear what you have to say next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Early in the morning and your box is wet. Life on the streets you'll never forget. Laying low with the needle in your arm. Token on a fatty completes your charm. Oh, Liberal Steve, we pray for you. You dirty, rotten commie, what you gonna do when the Ninth Circuit Court is overturned? You'll lose your box and your home will be burned.
Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
We're hopeful that justice will prevail and the taxpayers in Idaho and other states won't be forced to pay for what we see as a procedure that our healthcare professionals say is not necessary.
There we have it. Governor Little appearing on the Ingram Angle on the Fox News channel that we're partnered with here on KIDO Talk Radio, talking about, well, whether or not Idaho should be forced to pay for a convicted sex offender's gender reassignment surgery. We've been talking about that at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We'd love to hear your calls on that story, much, much more.
Well, there have been two other courts that have ruled opposite, and we appealed this to the Ninth Circuit, and we're going to appeal it again. We just heartily disagree. It's a bad precedent. It's going to be expensive, and it's contrary to the health professionals that we've had reviewing inmate Edmo's record, all the things about the inmate, and it's just contrary to good practices, and it's another example of activist court getting in the middle of something and creating a precedent that's going to be expensive for the taxpayers of Idaho and potentially all the taxpayers of the United States.
There we have it. In an unrelated case, you also have the crime-fighting Attorney General Lawrence Wasden and Russ Fulcher have joined a case before the U.S. Supreme Court arguing that federal civil rights laws prohibiting discrimination based on gender do not apply to the gay, to the bisexual, or the transgenders. Idaho Attorney General Lawrence Wasden, Congressman Russ Fulcher, both Republicans, have signed a friend of the court briefs called amicus briefs, filed in 3 pending U.S. Supreme Court cases regarding protections for LGBTQRSTUV employees. The Supreme Court announced in April that it would take cases which involve people who claim they were fired because of their sexual or gender orientation to decide whether federal law prohibiting employment discrimination based on the sex applies to the gays and the transgenders employees. The court is expected to take up the case later this year. Does the Civil Rights Act of 1964 cover the lifestyle, the orientation, the gender identity as protected classes? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. Rolling right along. Let's go to Brian in Nampa. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Brian.
Hey, Kevin. I'm sorry I haven't called for a while. You know what the heat does, bro. You know.
I'm with you. Winter's on its way, little buddy.
Yeah. I appreciate what the lady just talked to you about, I kind of want to tie this into red flag laws and criminals too. And I know what she's talking about. I've been there. But I think we're kind of missing the bigger meaning. And let me give you an example. Girls that take prescription drugs that try to commit suicide. I know girls that try to slit their wrists. And I had a great uncle who hung himself with a rope. So I know guns make it easier. But the problem isn't the device. The problem is the state of mind of the individual. And it's the same thing with these red flag laws. You really think you're going to stop somebody that has bad intentions from doing that by taking their firearms? No, you're not. They'll find another way to do it if they really want to do it. And that's why I don't think these red flag laws and taking the guns from a suicide person. I've got a father-in-law that went to Vietnam that had post-traumatic stress. We had to deal with his issues, not the devices, because if they really want to end their life, they're going to find a way to do it. So I just kind of
her thought was for people that missed it, that was Tess saying, just go in and get their guns.
Right. The gun's not the issue. It doesn't matter if it's murder or mass shootings or suicide. The issue is the person's state of mind, and that's what needs to be addressed. Yeah. Now, if the person asks you to take them away, then I would say you need to be a little more thorough than just taking the guns. You got to sit down and talk to them and say, hey, what are you thinking about doing? You thinking about tying up a bed sheet and hanging yourself in the garage? You might need to take the bed sheets. Maybe you should not take the bed sheets and the guns, and maybe you should go get them some help, and maybe they need to go to an institute.
Right, but how would you do that? I don't think the state is equipped. I mean, we don't have a mental health facility. I'm not challenging you. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying the state should do that. I'm saying individuals should do that.
Well, where do you take someone that Brian, I'm with you, but where would you take someone? Just as a question.
I would be with that person. I would make that person a priority. Mm-hmm. If I have to take time off work, if I have to get more people involved. See, we always talk about, the government solving the problem. When are we going to talk about us solving the problems? When are we going to make people more important than everything else? That's how you solve it. It's priorities. And it's that simple, but people make it hard because they make other things more important than people.
Brian, great thoughts. Thank you for listening. God bless, brother.
Bye.